So you're ready to dive into some serious personal growth, huh?
That's right. We're going deep with a classic Mesillat Yesharim, the path of the just. It's been guiding people for centuries.
And for good reason, right. But let's be honest, it's not exactly a light read.
No, not exactly. But that's where we come in. We'll break down the core ideas from the introduction, make it clear and relevant for today.
Perfect, because who's got time to decode dense philosophical treatises these days?
Right. And the author, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, fascinating guy. 18th century Italy, he was a mystic, a scholar, even a playwright.
Okay, so not just some boring old rabbi then.
Not at all. And that's what makes his take on personal growth so compelling. He gets right to the heart of what holds us back.
All right, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me. What's the big secret to unlocking this whole personal growth thing?
Well, Luzzatto argues that most of us completely miss the real point of spiritual growth.
Oh, no. Really? What are we missing?
He calls it overfamiliarity. It's like we become blind to the most important truths simply because they're always right in front of us.
I think I know what you mean. It's like, we know we should be grateful for our health, our loved ones, but...
Exactly. But we get so caught up in the daily grind that we forget to actually feel that gratitude.
It's like it loses its impact somehow. Do you have another example of this overfamiliarity thing?
Sure, think about a dripping faucet. At first, you hear it constantly. It drives you crazy.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But eventually, you just tune it out. It becomes background noise, even though it still needs fixing.
Wow, that's a really good analogy.
Yeah.
So how does that apply to, like, our spiritual lives?
Luzzatto's saying we do the same thing with spiritual truths. We hear them so often they lose their meaning. We assume, since they're simple, they're not worth our time.
I can see that. So we prioritize the complex stuff.
Exactly. We crave that feeling of mastering something difficult, whether it's science, a craft, even the fine points of religious law.
And we end up neglecting the simpler things, the things that really matter.
Precisely. Love, awe, connection to something greater than ourselves, we take those for granted.
Because if it's not complicated, it can't be that important, right?
That's the trap. And Luzzatto's wisdom is in calling us out on it. He's saying, wake up. The most important things are staring you in the face, but you've become blind to them.
Okay, so we've identified the problem. We're blind to the simple but profound truths because of this overfamiliarity. So what's the solution? How do we open our eyes? So how do we open our eyes? I mean, it's easy to say we're missing the simple truths, but how do we actually start seeing them again?
Well, the good news is Luzzatto doesn't just leave us hanging with the problem. He actually offers a way to break free from this superficiality.
Okay, I like the sound of that. Less diagnosing, more solutions, please. So what's step one?
Step one is to call out a mistake we often make. We mistake ritual for genuine piety.
Okay. I think I need a little help unpacking that one. What exactly does he mean by piety?
Good point. It's a word we don't throw around every day. It means like genuine devotion, reverence, especially towards the divine.
Okay, so is Luzzatto saying that rituals are bad?
Not necessarily. It's more nuanced than that. He's saying true piety, it's not just about going through the motions, not just the rituals, the prayers, without any real inner change.
Ah, I see. So you can say all the right prayers, go to all the right services,
But if your heart's not in it, if it doesn't translate into actually being a better person, kinder, more ethical, then you're missing the point.
It's like putting on a costume, right? But not actually embodying the character.
It's all surface, no substance. Luzzatto's reminding us that true service, real connection, it comes from a much deeper place.
So it's about aligning what our insides and our outsides.
Yeah. Our inner world, our thoughts, intentions with our actions, that's where the real work is.
No shortcuts, huh?
Nope. And Luzzatto, he uses this powerful line from Chronicles to drive the point home. For God examines all hearts and understands every plan and every thought.
Wow, no pressure.
Right, you can't fake it. So the question becomes, how do we cultivate that genuine connection? How do we make our insides match our outsides?
Yeah, how do we do that? Because honestly, when I think about connecting to something like bigger than myself, it can feel kind of overwhelming.
Totally get it. But don't worry, Luzzatto gives us a path forward. And it's not about becoming a hermit or anything drastic.
Okay, good. Because I like my creature comforts way too much for that.
It's about refining the life you already have. He lays out 5 key elements: fear, awe, walking in God's ways, love, wholeheartedness, and observing commandments.
5 elements. All right, I think I can handle that.
You've got this.
So break it down for me. What do each of these actually look like in practice? Let's start with fear, awe. Though, honestly, the fear part has me a little concerned.
Yeah, good point. It's a little strong, isn't it? But Luzzatto is not talking about being scared, more like cultivating a deep sense of awe, respect, humility, recognizing that there's something much greater than us out there.
Okay, so more like, I don't know, looking up at the stars and feeling small.
Yes, exactly. It's about tapping into that sense of wonder, of vastness. It makes our everyday problems feel a little smaller, you know?
I can see how that would be helpful, for sure. And what about walking in God's ways? What does that mean in a practical sense?
Basically, it's about living ethically, acting with integrity, kindness, compassion in all areas of life.
Not just when it's easy or convenient, right?
Exactly. It's about aligning your actions with your values 24/7. No cutting corners, no ethical loopholes.
Gotcha. And what about love? Is he talking about romantic love or...
Good question. He's actually talking about a much bigger kind of love. He describes it as this active striving to please, to connect, to bring joy to the one we love.
So almost like how we act with someone we deeply care about. We go out of our way for them.
Yes, exactly that. And that naturally leads into the next element, which is wholeheartedness, being authentic, genuine. What you see is what you get. No more putting on a show.
I like that. And lastly, there's observing commandments. So is this where we get into a whole bunch of rules?
I know, right? Sounds intense. But Luzzatto doesn't want us to see the commandments as just arbitrary restrictions. Think of them more like tools.
Tools? For what?
For refining our character, for chipping away at our flaws, our ego. They help us become the best versions of ourselves.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. So it's not about blindly following rules, but using them as a framework for growth.
Exactly. And this whole path, all 5 elements, it really echoes this core Jewish teaching. Be holy, for I am holy.
Striving for holiness in everything we do, it's a beautiful idea. But I'm not going to lie, it's also a little intimidating. Like, how do we actually cultivate these qualities? Do we just wake up one morning magically filled with awe and love?
That's the real work, isn't it? And luckily, Luzzatto gives us some guidance on that, too.
So we have this incredible roadmap, but now it feels like the rubber meets the road. How do we actually cultivate these qualities? The awe, the love, the wholeheartedness. It's a pretty tall order.
It is. And Luzzatto, he addresses this head on. He says we need to study these qualities. It's not passive. We don't just like absorb them through osmosis.
So it's not enough to just think about them every now and then.
Right. It takes real effort, like learning any skill. You don't become a master chef overnight just by watching cooking shows. It takes practice.
Oh, tell me about it. Plenty of kitchen disasters in my past. It's definitely not just about having the recipe, right? You got to get your hands dirty.
Exactly. And that's Luzzatto's point. He actually uses this analogy of searching for hidden treasure.
Okay, I like where this is going.
You don't just stumble upon a chest of gold, right? You need a map, the right tools, and you got to be willing to dig.
It's about the journey, the seeking, as much as the finding.
Precisely. And Luzzatto emphasizes this. He even quotes Proverbs. For if you seek it like silver and search for it as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord.
Seek it like silver. That's beautiful, but also a little daunting if I'm being honest. Like, how do we fit this kind of intentional inner work into our already packed lives?
I hear that. It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? But Luzzatto, he kind of throws it back at us. He asks, if we can find time for hobbies, for our careers, why is it so hard to find time for something that truly defines our purpose?
It's about priorities, right? We make time for what we value. If we say we value personal growth, spiritual depth, then
we have to actually make it a priority. And the good news is it doesn't have to be this huge, overwhelming thing. Even a little bit each day, consistently, can make a huge difference.
Small steps, consistently applied. It's like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Exactly. Progress, not perfection. That's the key.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation about Luzzatto and Mesillat Yesharim. It's amazing how relevant his words from centuries ago still are.
Isn't it? It's like he's speaking directly to the chaos of our modern lives.
Totally. So as we wrap up, here's something for everyone listening to think about. What treasure are you neglecting in your life? What simple but profound truths have you lost sight of?
It's a question worth sitting with. Maybe even more than one deep dive.
Couldn't agree more. This is just the beginning of the journey.